Hello, I'm Howard Stableford and welcome to the car programme that doesn't feature any of the cars we see on roads today. For these are concept cars, dreamed up by teams of brave designers at the bleeding edge of creativity. This week on the programme we feature a range of concepts from the UK, including a relic from the time when steam power was genuinely the next big thing. We'll be in the pink with Rover's art creation and meet a Brit who's behind this box on wheels called a Nissan YYA. But first, let's meet some young British students who have designs on the future of our cars. We met up with some young designers based at Coventry University and we asked them, where will we be in a few years' time?
I think vehicles in the future will be a lot smaller than they are today. I think public transport will feature very importantly in the design of vehicles. I think it will be very personal and very lifestyle-orientated vehicles that people will be buying in the future.
People are going to use the public transport to commute from A to B, but they still have to be personal transportation to fulfill emotional needs and to give people the opportunity to go out in the weekend, have fun.
Maybe we won't have cars at all in 50 years' time. Maybe they'll just be, the only cars will be racing cars for our entertainment, or travelling buses or trains.
I think obviously technology drives change in the automotive world. Drive-by-wire is going to influence the interior of cars hugely. As soon as you're not restricted by where the steering wheel is and all that kind of things, that frees up a lot of possibilities.
This is Nissan's current production model, the Patrol, a huge house on wheels. It's the biggest 4x4 in Nissan's family, which also includes the X-Trail, the Terrano and the Navara. But what if you took many of the aspects and features of Nissan's current 4x4s and shrunk the whole package into a size not much more than the Micra? An impossible proposition? Not for the concept car designer. Enter the Nissan YYA. Now, while you're gasping for breath at your first glance at this awesome machine, I have to tell you that if this ever goes into production, it will have a few more features designed into it, like for example, curves. The YYA is a sports utility concept that attempts to offer a practical, high-tech, yet potentially affordable solution for the work and leisure needs of city folk. The interior is innovative and adaptable, and in this concept, it can even transform itself into a sports utility truck. Now that's a first. We caught up with the British-born designer at the Geneva Motor Show.
The YYA brief was all about to be affordable for the city-based individuals who it's marketed for. It's also be very compact, very simple, lightweight, and very flexibility and a lot of versatility inside the vehicle, basically. The YYA is more versatility than the Micra, and the customer needs are more different. YYA is based on based on city-based individuals who need like versatility, who are more stylish orientated, who are more active, who are more adventurous compared to like the Micra. The reason that the interior is square because the exterior designer, he wanted this kind of philosophy, basically very strong utility. So I wanted to bring all those kind of ideas into the interior, so there's not a big separation. But the interior is more simple, more fun, basically, for everybody in the vehicle. I really wanted to bring that. It's very nice to drive a car, but it's also very nice to be driven in a vehicle as well, basically. So that was the whole idea.
Well, from a bizarre concept to one that's much more conventional, but in no way less stunning. From the design studio of Callum, we have the awesome Jaguar R-Coupe. We caught up with him at the photographic studio, where the secret new concept was being prepared to be photographed for the world's press.
It's very important that the cars recognise what it is, in this case a Jaguar. And to that end, we must use cues and understanding of our heritage and build them into the car so people recognise that as being part of that family. And in this case, some of the simple graphics of the car portray that, there's no doubt about it. But then we must be brave enough to move the car forward and bring innovation into it, not just in technology, but in design form and language. And as long as our fundamental values are correct to our heritage, and this is subtle stuff, this is stuff that designers almost feel within, as long as they're correct and strong enough, you can innovate as much as you like and the car will take it.
The brief of the car was twofold really. As well as designing a flagship for the Jaguar range, the more important one perhaps was to actually explore what future Jaguars might actually look like.
Then of course you get the wonderful things like the graphics. The side glass graphics, we try and emulate some of the traditional shapes of the Jaguars of the past, the way that the hockey stick runs around the back of the rear glass, that's very important. We put a little bit more tension into it in this car, and again it gives the car more of a modern feel. Then of course there's the grille. Now when you see the grille it's instantly Jaguar, and it's the upright grille which stems way back from the C-type days.
At night, this concept still looks amazing with the subtle use of high technology lighting. But what about the name for this Jaguar concept?
Well, we thought of a number of names for the coupe, and we decided we wanted something straightforward and simple. And we chose the R because our R branding is something we want to bring to the forefront of Jaguar. Our new R branding has new graphics now, so it's a chance to introduce new graphics for the R branding. And also it emphasised the performance value of Jaguar. It's something else we want to bring forward. Jaguar have tended in recent years to be looked at purely as a luxury product. In actual fact, its real heritage is performance.
While the Jaguar has definite styling cues from their heritage, it seems that Rover are either ashamed of theirs or have simply torn up the book when penning the TCV. The Rover TCV, or Tourer concept vehicle, has some futuristic design elements that don't seem to come from any particular make of car. So they could, if they pursue this line of thought, make this style their very own.
This is our design direction for new Rover. It's leading edge, it's a fresh design that will position the car and the company with a new look for Rover into the 21st century. This is a Peter Stevens design car. Peter, who's done an awful lot for us recently, but is also famed for other sports car designs.
The Tourer concept vehicle is meant to express what we believe are the qualities that the Rover should have, which are elegance, stylishness, but practicality, and a wider functionality than you might normally see in a car. There is a tendency that if you think about the history of a company, what you do is to reach into a box and you keep pulling out bits and sticking them on the car and saying, yeah, that's our history because we stuck it all over the car. What we're trying to do is look at the qualities that we think Rover has always had, which are a kind of an affordable luxury, but they're also a practicality and an elegance. I mean, those were the key words we used in doing this car, without needing to rummage around for an old taillight.
Maybe a touch of some of Cadillac's current design trends are present, but the TCV has a sleek, eye-catching body, while inside the seats are adaptable for different sizes of passengers, and the centre rear seat can be altered to take a variety of installations. At the business end of the Tourer, the seats collapse, giving storage flexibility. So what, you might say? Most cars have some sort of flexibility like this, but for the TCV, you can take a spare tyre out, remove the floor, and this gives you loads more space to take home larger items, like this washing machine. You only hope now, of course, that you don't get a flat tyre on the way home.
It could have been anything, but frankly, it was there to demonstrate the capacious load-carrying versatility of this car. It's not just an estate. In fact, most estates' car wouldn't be able to do this. So if you turn up to go and buy a washing machine, if you like, you would normally have to have that delivered. With this car, you can take it home.
Since we were sold off by BMW a couple of years back, as you know, a lot of emphasis has been put on the MG brand. And I think for a lot of people, there could have been a view that maybe we'd forgot about Rover. And as we were developing our new range of cars, we saw a golden opportunity to show the world that we hadn't actually forgot about Rover, and that this car here sort of illustrates our current thinking on how Rover products could be in the future.
But if Rover's flexibility to take on board a washing machine doesn't impress you, what if you could swap the entire body of your car? This is General Motors' Autonomy, which boasts a wide range of achievements. If you have one of these in your garage, you could really surprise your neighbours by driving out in a different car each day. You'd have the neighbourhood ganging up to drag you out to burn you as a witch or wizard, because nobody would really understand what the heck's going on in there.
This is, as the concept shown here, is the General Motors and Opel version for around 2015, how a vehicle can look like. So the vehicle we will bring onto the road will be different in dimension, also different in styling, to show the flexibility of such kind of concept. But it will definitely cover this kind of concept.
Inside your garage, you would simply be removing the old body and clipping on a new one to ring the changes. Now, this is a good idea. However, nobody's quite worked out yet where the average person would store all the spare body shells, or also how you'd clip the body on without specialised equipment. But these are mere details.
Hydrogen will power the fuel cell power system, which creates electric energy and powers the electric drive system to bring mechanical force to the wheels. So this is a propulsion system of the future, environmental friendly, no emissions. So running on pure hydrogen is really the future, we believe.
The General Motors Autonomy, the car with many identities. That's all for part 1, but here's a glimpse of some of the concept cars we'll be featuring in part 2. Usually a concept car is a completely new design, but here this Rover 25 has had a concept makeover. Matthew Williamson, the top British designer, has been commissioned by Rover to add a few trademark pink touches to their small hatch. Well, more than a few. Quite a few, actually. Hardly an area of the car hasn't been spared a pink blush, a pink tint or a pink explosion. It actually looks very attractive in the flesh, especially with this nubile model behind the wheel dressed in a Williamson creation. That's it, love. Hold that pose. This is video, remember, not stills.
Well, Matthew is one of Britain's top, leading designers, and he's taken his expression to an extreme. That is his taste, that is the way he would like it, but it's clearly an art car as a concept.
Although you can't have your Rover 25 exactly like this, the purpose of this art car concept is to promote the fact that Rover can now be customised to your tastes.
Monogram is the opportunity for people to individualise their car. So if they want the blue with the flip to yellow or colours of an individual shade, they can do that, and they can do that also with interiors, and they can do that with technical features inside the car.
Rover admit that you couldn't order a car exactly like this concept, but you can certainly ask for a wide range of elements on your own customised car.
There are elements of that. You can have, for example, the red Alcantara seats, for example. You could have one of the colours that is very close to that with the flips and its travel into other colours.
The pink customisation by Matthew Williamson is admired by legendary British designer Peter Stevens.
And I'm a kind of champion of that British design because I think what someone like Matthew Williamson has done as a young British fashion designer has worldwide said that, you know, if you want trendy fashion design, then you want a Brit to do it. And I think there are elements in Rover design that we want to be British that are perceived in the same way. You know, there's no doubt that in Germany or Italy, the British qualities of a design are seen as something very positive, attractive and interestingly different for them.
The National Motor Museum at Bewley is England's leading museum for motoring heritage. Over the last 50 years, Lord Montague, the owner of the museum, has collected an impressive range of cars in the beautiful countryside near England's New Forest. The museum covers all the years of motoring. Here's a Benz three-wheeler from 1886, the world's first motor car. Very nice. But what would Mr. Benz have made of the Orange Mini? Very fruity. From bone shakers to supercars, Bewley has it all. But of course, we aren't here just to admire the scenery of Bewley, or to just admire the cars. We're here to talk concepts. And the man who knows most about concepts at Bewley is one of its senior staff, Steve Vokins. So the most obvious question for Steve is, why were concept cars originally produced?
Concept cars were originally done because the manufacturers wanted to gauge public opinion. Sometimes they'd have radical ideas, or sometimes they didn't have radical ideas, and they wanted to promise the car buyer of tomorrow better than they're actually offering them today.
In light of the falling numbers of visitors to motor shows after the war, astonishing concept cars were used as a way to get more people through the doors. Now we know that today's cars are designed using clay models and computers, but how did they do it in the good old days?
Concept cars really started in the early 50s, and in those early days what would happen is you'd get some bright-eyed designer like maybe Harley Earl or someone. They'd come up with some space-age concept. They'd put it on maybe a piece of A3 paper, just draw people in silver suits in a car of tomorrow, and then maybe they'd go to a full-size drawing on the wall. Before, if they liked that and it gained approval, they'd go to the expense of making a clay model. Sometimes quarter scale, sometimes full scale. In the case of the Ford X2000, that only ever got to quarter scale clay model, which is a shame really. Andy Saunders' car, the X2000, is his interpretation of what the clay model would have been like if it had gone all the way through to production of the full metal thing.
But what about crash testing? This is standard practice and of course law these days. But back in the classic age of motoring, you weren't a real motorist unless you had at least a few scars and bruises. Now, if you were to suggest to a high-flying company director that his big car could have been running on steam, he would laugh in your face. But believe it or not, steam power nearly became the popular choice over petrol engines. Honestly. One of the first steam cars was the Stanley Steamer in the early 1900s. Its current owner is enthusiast Bill Rich, who lives on the south coast. When it comes to petrol engines, the first decent example was this Mercedes-Benz created in the late 1800s. So the type of motive power we haven't yet mentioned is electric power. Surely that's a modern invention. Another type of propulsion that was a hopeful challenger to the petrol engine was gas turbine propulsion. This all sounds very high-tech, but what was involved in these types of vehicles?
Everyone thinks of electric cars as the way forward, the way of the future. It's a modern concept, it's the way to go. Wrong. People were thinking that 100 years ago. We've got the Bursey electric cab in the museum. It's 1898 and there were 70 of these things built, not just one. It's not a prototype. This thing had a big tray of batteries underneath and it was designed to replace the horse-drawn hansom cab. One problem, a range of just 30 miles between charges. So technically as a taxi cab it's pretty flawed, but nevertheless it shows that the petrol engine didn't have it all its own way in the early days. It wasn't just petrol, there was electric, there was steam, all sorts of things. So it was a really important car from that point of view, but it's not the only electric car. We've got a 1901 Columbia electric, built in the USA, and it was used by Queen Alexandra to go around the grounds of various royal palaces. Now one of the spooky things about this car was it was so deathly quiet that she actually had an electric bell put on it so she could warn the gardeners she was coming, because obviously you wouldn't want to shout at them, being royalty. Warn the gardeners to stand up, salute and get out the way because I'm coming through.
Now, what's this? A car in heaven? Or is the dry ice just a nod to the heavenly aspirations of this concept car from Volvo? The sassy Swedes are now owned by Ford, so there won't be any pie-in-the-sky daft designs. They'll be looking for solid financial returns on their investments. So this concept builds on the cross-country success story and is called the ACC2, the Adventure Cross Country.
The cross-country part of our range, which is on show today in full strength now with the XC90 and what is today called the V70 Cross Country, which will be called XC70, this was to really strengthen the whole idea of this part of our range, which I felt that if we could associate our cars more with Sweden or Scandinavia in general, then people would see that our cars are designed, let's say, to withstand conditions much worse than other cars. If you're living in Sweden and you don't turn south for your winter sports, like most people do, but turn north, then you're into another world. You're into the -40s and even -50s, recorded in Sweden. But there are fantastic places, frozen lakes and mountains, which you can really get involved with winter sports which have never been tried before. And that car, I think, represents the Swedish element of Volvo much more than any other.
So what kind of adventure can we have in the adventure cross country? Well, the standard studded tyres should help grip in all weathers, and the brakes have been spec'd up as well. Inside, the back seating can intriguingly fold up to make this cosy camping area. Well, it saves packing a tent, I suppose. The next day, the seats can slide back to get the room back again. Here's a neat touch which looks a bit like the HAL computer shutdown scene in the movie 2001. These red glowing pods slowly move out and can contain anything from maps to video cameras. The dashboard is very attractive with extremely clear switchgear, although of course we can't tell how practical or ergonomic anything is until we're allowed to drive it. Well, that's all the time we have for this week, but on the next edition of Concept Cars, we'll look at the creations from the Blue Oval Brigade at Ford, marvel at the X2000 with more fins than Helsinki, cheer the Brit who's built his own X2000, cheer the nostalgic return of the legendary T-Bird, and gawp at the curious concept called the 24/7. All next week in Concept Cars. See you then.